How to be the best you can be. Be the best you can be. An overnight change for the fantastic price of $1. The crude, hand-drawn sign was placed on the door of the pharmacy, just newly opened after being closed for renovations. Despite being brand new, it was an awfully unimpressive sight. Yet, I was curious. Not that I intended to fall for any miracle cure, but I wanted to know what they could possibly offer as a life-changing experience for only $1. Seeing as I had some loose change still rattling about in my pocket after an unhealthy burger for lunch, I figured I could satisfy my curious itch by looking around inside. As I entered, I realized the pharmacy hadn't changed much since it closed a year ago. The same products and outdated advertisements hung above the aisles with grandiose offers they couldn't possibly satisfy. "Welcome, sir. How may I help you on this fine day?" the pharmacist said. He was a middle-aged, impeccably groomed man wearing an expensive suit that clashed with the otherwise rough-looking interior. If I were to venture a guess, I'd say the renovation was mostly spent on that one man. Although he was clearly working there, he looked nothing like a pharmacist. "Yeah, hi. I was just curious about the self-improvement offer on the poster outside." "Ah, yes. Are we looking for a quick fix to improve your life?" "Actually, I was just curious. I mean, how much can you really get for $1? The man looked at me with a confused expression. "You mean to say that if we charged $1,000 for this solution, you'd have more faith in it?" "Well, that's not. What's your name, sir?" he asked. Daniel Pace." "Well, Mr. Pace, as it is, I'm in the business of giving people what they want. Money, I have enough of. Don't even see why people desire it so much. Which is why I've come up with this." "So, what is this, exactly?" "A pill. Single dose. Only taken once. And you invented it?" "Yes, sir, I did indeed. I never knew much about medicine, but I had little faith that a singular pill could change anyone's life for the better. Even though it was cheap, better safe than sorry when it comes to thoughtlessly ingesting an unknown substance." "Sorry, I'm gonna pass this time." "I understand," he said, still smiling. "We'll be here if you ever change your mind." I guess this is the point where I should tell everyone an undeniable fact: I am not, nor have I ever been, a very smart man. Being in my 20s, I wasted most of my time lying around in bed, watching television, and drinking far too much. A classic underachiever that peaked early in life, and then fell flat when faced with the real world. To be frank, I was a chubby piece of shit that would never get where I dreamt of without a miracle. That night I stayed up late watching old movies and drinking whiskey all by myself. Alcoholism was a curse I expected right around the corner, and as I awoke in the morning I could immediately feel the well-earned punishment of a headache. I decided to return to the pharmacy. If nothing else, I'd only lose $1, and gain a much-needed walk. "Ah, Mr. Pace, was a pleasure to see you again," the man said as I entered the pharmacy. "Hello. I'm here again about that pill you were talking about yesterday. You finally decided to give it a try?" "Not yet. I'd kinda like to know how it works first, being safe and all." "Naturally. A smart move. But let's ignore all the scientific jargon. I'll put it in layman's terms." "Alright, fair enough." The man took a break, mulling over what to say next. "Think of a car. It has a driver's seat, a few passenger seats, and a trunk. Now, imagine that each seat is occupied by a version of yourself. There's a smart one, a fun one, a lazy one, and maybe one that makes all the right choices in life. They will all remain in the car till the end of time. But sometimes the driver changes, the one that will be in charge. What this pill does is to let the best version of yourself take the wheel for as long as possible, and puts the lazy one in the trunk of the car." It was a painfully slow metaphor, but it got the point across. "So you'd say it brings out the best in people, in a manner of speaking?" "Yes, all for $1. Exactly." I searched my pockets for whatever loose change I could find, and handed it over to the man. He smiled as he gave me a small paper bag containing a pill within a fancy, gold-rimmed box. I hadn't yet decided to use it, but for the price I wasn't too worried about it being a scam. For the next few days the pill lied safely within my bedside drawer. Whether to take it or not was yet to be decided, but an easy solution was tempting. And being the undisciplined brat I was, it didn't take much to push me over the edge. That push came a night I decided that sleep was overrated. Even though I had to get up for work in the morning. When 1 a.m. rolled around, and I could already see the struggle of getting up at the break of dawn, I truly started to hate myself. Time had come to risk it and take the pill. In the end, what was the worst that could happen? It's not like the man could have gained anything from murdering people. And if he did, someone probably would have heard about it already. With a sip of water I swallowed the large pill and sat down on my bed. I wasn't exactly sure what I expected to happen, but the effect certainly didn't come immediately. A minute passed, Then an hour and yet nothing had changed. At 3 o'clock I decided it was enough. It seemed that I'd lost $1 and desperately needed sleep. The following morning I awoke just a couple of minutes before my alarm clock, feeling both invigorated and awake. Despite having slept for no more than 4 hours, a welcome feeling after an irresponsibly long night. In addition to my wakefulness, the apartment was completely clean. My first thought was that my mold-ridden apartment had stunk up the hallways to the point where someone broke in just to clean it for me. But then I noticed my wrinkly fingers that had clearly spent an abnormal amount of time underwater, presumably while cleaning the apartment. Sleep cleaning. If that's a thing, was that how the pill worked? Making my body complete household tasks during my unconscious hours. Days went by and then the bizarre sleep phenomenon continued. I would fall asleep at ungodly hours and go to work on mundane tasks such as meal prepping, exercise and paperwork. And despite performing all the monotonous tasks, I would wake up in the mornings feeling as fresh as ever. Within a few weeks, I lost 10 pounds, and was chosen for a promotion, mostly based on the work I did while unconscious. It all gave me a newfound confidence to break out of my shell and meet new people. As the weekend arrived, I decided to give social life a chance, and went out with a few coworkers for beers at local pub I had seen, but never dared enter on my own. I hadn't even spoken much to any of them in the past, but since my promotion I had the opportunity to interact more with people rather than paper. I felt hazy even after the first beer, and the next thing I know I woke up in bed next to a naked woman I'd never seen before in my life. Not even a vague recollection of the previous night, but as with usual blackouts I had no hangover to accompany the loss of memory. I felt as fresh as ever. Had I been roofied, or simply forgotten the amount of alcohol I consumed? One-night stands were a new experience for me, and certainly nothing I felt comfortable with. As soon as the woman woke up I made up some excuse and asked her to leave. Even offered to pay for the cab. But she wasn't too happy. That was the beginning of my new life. Every now and then I would lose a few hours, black out while doing some mundane task and not realize what was happening until I found myself driving home from work or just finishing dinner. For each lost chunk of time, I would improve my life in one way or another. I figured it was a decent trade, my mind turning to autopilot whenever I was bored. And in return I felt great. I attempted to return to the pharmacy where it had all started, wanting answers, but once again it had closed for renovations, without any contact information listed. A few months passed and yet again I was promoted, which would have been great news if I could recall any of the work I completed for the company. At first I only lost a few hours here and there getting rid of boring tasks and otherwise enjoying life, but then the gaps grew longer. I became unable to recall days on end. After a year of this, weeks started to turn blank. Then I lost an entire year. I remember returning to consciousness and glancing at a brand new, top-of-line phone in an apartment I didn't recognize. Upon glancing around the place I saw some of my old decorations and pictures showing me as a much healthier, happier person than I could ever recall being. The newer photos were pictures myself alongside a woman, hugging, kissing. Apparently I'd found myself a girlfriend, or rather my better half had found someone. A beautiful brunette with brown eyes that lit up like gold in the sunshine. Extremely talkative as well. Hardly let me get a word in between sentences. We only spent a couple days together, but it was absolutely enough for me to fall head over heels for her. I had a perfect weekend in my own body with her by my side. We talked about life and our future goals. She was a bit suspicious at my forgetfulness, but as much as she loved to run her mouth and reminisce about life, it was easy to catch up on what had happened so far. Whatever my doppelganger, or alternate self, was doing, he had managed to build a perfect life, and I wished for nothing more than to settle down and actually live it. But deep down I knew in my heart that no matter what I did, I could never live up to the man he was. As the doubts started to seep into the back of my mind, I could feel myself drifting back into the timeless void. 2 years passed. During that time, my better self had saved up a minor fortune. So I spent the time I had for myself getting checked out by doctors, shrinks, psychics, shamans, basically anyone willing to help me out. From what I could gather, the alternate me had never had any concerns with the blackouts, never even mentioning them to anyone. The professionals offered little in terms of helpful advice, citing different neurological disorders, psychiatric conditions, or even demons possessing me. At that point they all seemed equally plausible to me. Whatever the solution, I wasn't given enough time to find it before my more productive self once again took the wheel. 10 long years passed before I finally woke up. A whole ducking decade. Lucy, whom I barely knew, was now my wife, and together we had 2 children, a fact I only discovered as they barged into our bedroom and jumped onto our bed. In shock, I did my best to pretend I belonged in that family, while making a half-assed excuse to get out of the house. I actually told Lucy there was a problem at work, which was a risky solution as I had no clue what my job was anymore. My body felt older, and walking around put a strain on my knee. There was a neat surgical scar, so something must have happened to me while I was on autopilot. Defeated, I wandered into town, fully well knowing that I could fall back into the void and be lost again for God knows how long. I headed for the town park, a place I used to visit during times of distress to clear my head. But at some point during these past 10 years it had been replaced by a shopping mall and its accompanying parking lot. There used to be a CAF next to the park, and like a minor ray of sunshine in my otherwise cloudy existence, it was still there, a vague hint of familiarity. I headed there and sat down. Of course the staff were all brand new. I sat down in the same booth I always used to and was handed a menu, oddly well preserved with only minor changes. I wondered for a bit if my alternate self ever visited this CAF. As I clung to the memories of a time long gone, a man sat himself down in the booth with me. "Mr. Pace, it's been a while," he said. It was the man from the pharmacist, and he hadn't aged a day since our last meeting. "Oh, please, Mr. Pace, are you not going to greet the man that changed your life? You mean ruined my life? What the hell have you done to me?" I said louder than expected. A couple of the waitresses shot me a concerned look. "I did exactly what you asked me to do." He smiled as he watched me think back to our first meeting. The promise of getting rid of my procrastinating self, letting the better me take control of the steering wheel. I didn't want this. I'm not even living my own life. Of course you are. Well, more accurately the improved version of you. Successful, healthy, with beautiful wife and children. It's everything you ever wanted. You just didn't want to work for it. I don't care. Just give me back my old life. That's not how it works, Mr. Pace. Everyone has to make a choice in life, and very rarely do we get to redo these decisions. The man stood up from the booth getting ready to leave. "Oh, if you're ordering you should try the Eggs Benedict. They're to die for. Might as well enjoy the time you have with yourself." "Wait." He turned back towards me. "I need to know why you did this." He chuckled. "I did it because you asked me to. Seriously though. Eggs Benedict. Try them out." Reflexively, I glanced at the menu, and when I reverted my gaze back up the man had disappeared. Before I had the chance to order anything, I began to feel hazy. And shortly after I blacked out, my body returned to autopilot. I was jolted back to reality by a violent coughing fit. My mouth felt like sandpaper and I found myself sitting in a poorly lit room, wearing clothes that somehow chafed in places I didn't know were possible. Everything seemed dull around me, like I was in a poorly rendered version of reality. But the world wasn't any different. My eyes had just been worn out by a life well lived. Just not by me. I fumbled around to find a pair of glasses tucked into my shirt pocket. Finally I could get a grasp of where and when I was. After a quick glance around the room I noticed a calendar on the wall. 37 years had passed since the CAF. Getting up from the chair proved to be a challenge. My joints didn't want to carry the weight of my own body, aching with every step. I was out of breath just standing up. Based on the artifacts in my house, little memoirs, I could tell I had outlived my wife. My children had moved abroad in search for adventures and I didn't recognize the names of any of my friends or coworkers. 37 years had passed since the day at the CAF, and my life had been the perfect dream I always wanted. Unfortunately, I wasn't the one living it. I had another coughing fit, expelling thick, bloody phlegm with each push of air. After almost passing out, I made my way to the bathroom, something that proved hard to find in an unknown home. The drug names meant nothing to me, but the instructions were clear. I had lung cancer, son of a biatch. I never even smoked to the best of my knowledge. I heard the creaking of a chair coming from the living room. Surprisingly, my hearing was still quite intact even at such an advanced age. Even before I went to check it out, I knew who I'd meet. "Hello, Mr. Pace. Please have a seat." The pharmacist, there to watch me spend my last few cancer-riddled days in agony. "What do you want?" "I came here to thank you, but I see now I might be too late." "What the duck are you talking about? When I say I wanted to thank you, I meant to better you. But it appears he's already left us. Lung cancer is a painful way to go. And I suppose he took his freedom the moment he saw it available." "I bet he did," I responded sarcastically. "Anyhow, I wanted to thank the improved Mr. Pace for his excellent service while working for me." "What? That's right. For the better part of your life, the gaps you've missed in time were spent working for me. But I needed someone more productive, someone more inclined to put forth their best effort." "You mother F. There's no need for that. In fact, I'm here to give you a second chance." I simply stared at him, not wanting to give him a chance to screw up my life further. "Daniel, please, you might not realize it, but we're going to be very good friends any day now. Somehow I doubt that. Well, let me ask you this. What would you do to get your life back? Anything. What if I gave you the opportunity to work for me? And in return you get to live through the approximately 60 years you can't remember. Work. Yes, an assistant of sorts. Your family would never know what kind of work you do and you'd be given a rather generous salary with benefits. And the best health insurance you could dream of. Who the hell are you? Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet. No, you have not. Well then, I go by many names, but you can call me Lucifer. His smile widened. He reached out his hand, offering a deal with the devil to get my life back. Without hesitation I shook it. I think we're going to have a very productive partnership together. Daniel. No sooner had he spoken these words before I woke up in my younger body, back to the moment after I had just swallowed the pill. It had lit up an undying motivational force within me, and I knew exactly what to do and how to do it. I was ready to live the perfect life. Holy shit, this was an amazing story. Great job, I loved the ending. Thank you. That means a lot. Lucifer, you sneaky lil prick. Hope you live your best life, OP.